The older I get, the less I care. And that sentence sounds like it's supposed to scare me. It's supposed to be a warning sign, something a therapist hears and leans forward in their chair. But I'm saying it out loud because it's the most honest thing I felt in years. And honesty doesn't always come dressed up like a breakthrough. Sometimes it just sounds cold. I used to carry everyone, not physically, but emotionally, mentally. Someone in my circle had a problem, I was there. Someone needed to vent at midnight, I picked up. Someone wanted to talk about changing their life, getting better, building something. I was the guy who sat across from them and actually helped them map it out. I gave people the version of me that I needed from someone else, and I did it without thinking twice, and none of it mattered. Not one time did I get that energy back. Not once. The people who vented didn't want solutions. They wanted a witness. They wanted someone to sit in the mess with them so the mess felt normal. Nobody around me was actually trying to fix things. They just wanted to talk about fixing things because it scratches the same itch without requiring any of the pain. And I had one friend, an actual person I could actually sit across from and have a conversation that actually meant something. We talked about building discipline, starting a business, and not being the same person at 25 that we are at 20. And I believed him, and I believed that because I was serious about it, he was too. And then I found out that after all this talking and everything, and everything's fine and dandy. I found out that he hooked up with some random girl because of his other friend who does absolutely nothing but chase women and waste time. And he got in his ear, and everything we discussed, everything we planned, every exchange that felt like it carried weight, completely gone. Not because of a tragedy, not because life got hard, because the path of least resistance walked by in a fucking skirt and he followed it without looking back. And that was the moment. It wasn't a dramatic blow up, not a fight, just a quiet realization that the person I thought was building with me was just killing time until something easier came along. And something easier always comes along. And that's the thing nobody tells you about investing in people. You're not competing with the worst habits. You are competing with their comfort, and comfort wins almost every single time. So I stopped. I stopped carrying, stopped showing up with the energy that wasn't being matched. I stopped treating people's problems like they were mine to solve. And you know what happened? Nothing. The room stayed exactly the same. Nobody pulled me aside and said, hey, something's different about you. Nobody said they missed the old me. Not one person even clocked that a shift had taken place. I changed fundamentally the way I used my time, who I let into my head, and the world around me didn't even flinch. The silence was louder than any argument could have been because it confirmed what I had already suspected. The version of me that gave everything wasn't valued, he was just convenient. And that's the part that rewires you, not the betrayal, not the letdown, the invisibility of it. You remove yourself from the equation, and the equation doesn't change. That means you were never a variable. You were just a constant they couldn't afford to lose. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. And now here's where everyone expects a pivot. Here's where I'm supposed to say, but I went too far, or I realized I was just being bitter, or the self help arc, the redemption beat, the part where I admit that not caring was actually a defense mechanism and I need to open my heart again, or whatever. And I'm not going to do that because not caring selectively, deliberately, is the single best thing I've done for my clarity. My head has been quieter than it's ever been. I'm not anxious about relationships I can't control. I'm not replaying conversations wondering if I said enough, or I'm not performing emotional labor for people who will forget my name in 6 months. And that noise is gone. And in its place is something I didn't expect: space, actual room to think about what I'm building instead of what I'm maintaining for someone else. I got broken up with once, zero closure, no conversation, no explanation, no clean ending, just silence where a person used to be. And I took that silence and I turned it into a principle. I told myself I'd never give anyone the power to leave a gap like that again. And that principle felt like growth, it felt like wisdom, but some of it, not all of it, but some was just a wall I built fast enough that I could pretend it was architecture. The friend situation just accelerated it. The breakup planted the seed, and by the time I looked up, I had a whole philosophy built on top of wounds I never actually processed. I just outran them, rebranded the distance as discipline. And I'm not saying that to walk it back. The discipline is real, the boundaries are necessary. Most people genuinely are not worth the energy I was giving them. And that's not bitterness, that's just math. But I would be lying if I said there wasn't a version of a 20-year-old me who got hurt and decided the safest way to play was to never be in a position to feel that again. And safety and growth aren't the same thing, they just share the same zip code. So, what do I actually care about? I care about building something real before the window closes. That's it. That's the one wall that I'm protecting. Not a relationship, not a friendship, not a reputation. The possibility that I don't end up trapped, that I don't wake up at 40 in the same cubicle, same commute, same paycheck that was never actually enough to live on. Realizing I traded every young and hungry year I had for stability that wasn't even stable. And that fear, it runs everything. Every morning I get up and work on something. It's not because I'm motivated, it's because I'm terrified. The salary slave pipeline is real, and it doesn't announce itself. It just happens one comfortable year at a time until you look up and you're 15 years deep with no exit and no leverage. And that's the nightmare. That's the one thing I can't stop thinking about, no matter how much I've shut everyone and everything else off. And that's the reason I stopped caring about everything else, not because I evolved past it, because I can't afford the distraction. The margin is too thin. Every hour I spend on someone else's drama is an hour I'm putting towards the only thing that might actually save my life. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean the difference between agency and captivity, between owning your time and renting it out for a number that someone else decided you're worth. People hear, I don't care anymore, and they picture apathy. They picture someone checked out, numbed out, drifting, but that's not what it is. This is looking at everything, competing for your attention, and making the brutal, uncomfortable call about what actually matters and what just feels like it does because you've been conditioned to maintain it.